As you guys know, I absolutely love to tell the stories of rookies and go through players' backstories, but it's just not as popular as it used to be on the channel, and I just can't cover everyone anymore. In my opinion, there were a lot of really awesome players who were selected in the 7th round this year, especially at the wide receiver spot. I'm not really going to get an opportunity to make full-length features on these guys, so in today's video, I want to talk about the loaded hidden gems that came out of the 7th round. These are guys that you deserve to know about that could have an impact on their teams moving forward, and honestly, I just want to give them a chance to have a spotlight. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you can support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about some 7th round gems. Okay, I lied. Actually, after doing research, there were only 2 receivers taken in the 6th round this year, so we're going to go ahead and talk about the 6th and 7th round guys instead of just the 7th round guys. What's funny is that both of the guys taken in round number 6 were actually both from the same school in Colorado. The first guy we need to talk about is Leonte Wester. He ended up coming out of Palmetto High School in Florida, and as a senior, he put up nearly 1,000 yards with 8 touchdowns, but didn't exactly get a ton of recruiting attention. He was ranked very low on 24/7 Sports and would have to sign with Florida Atlantic. He would arrive at the Owls in 2020, which was quite the weird time to come into college, but over the next 4 years, Leonte would become one of the best receivers in the Group of 5 level. He had over 700 yards in both the 2021 and 2022 seasons, and also combined for 12 touchdowns and about 130 catches in that time period. His best season, though, would come in 2023, as Webster would finish with 108 receptions for 1,168 yards and 8 scores. This made him one of the top receivers in the 2024 transfer portal, and he decided to follow Coach Prime and go play alongside Shedeur Sanders. In his one season with the Buffs, he'd end up catching 74 passes for 931 yards and a career-high 10 touchdowns. Because of this, he was invited to the Combine and was likely to get selected in this year's draft. It would end up happening as it picked number 203 in the 6th round, and hopefully he can pan out into another weapon for Lamar Jackson. Up next, we have our other Colorado guy, and that is Jimmy Horn Jr. Coming out of Seminole High School in Florida, he also was a really solid player, but didn't exactly get a ton of recruiting attention. Jimmy Horn Jr. ended up finishing with 42 passes for 736 yards and 9 touchdowns, and while he was a solid athlete, his offer sheet was pretty barren. He had offers from schools like Central Arkansas, FAU, Jackson State, and USF, and he actually chose to go to the USF Bulls. In his first year down in Tampa, he ended up having 30 catches for 400 yards and a touchdown. But things would get a lot better in 2022, as despite an inept offense, Horn finished with 37 catches for 551 yards and 3 touchdowns. Combining that with his athleticism made him one of the better transfer receivers in the country, and he decided to go to Colorado before the 2023 season. Horn would end up catching 58 passes for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns his first year, but this past season he would end up falling off, as he only had 37 catches for 441 yards and 1 touchdown. Honestly, his dip in production sort of shocked me, but at the same time, NFL scouts really like this guy, and he was taken in the 6th round with pick number 208 to the Carolina Panthers. Apparently, Horn has been absolutely blowing up, as I've been reading a ton about him, and he's been getting a ton of buzz in camp so far, so maybe he'll actually make an impact and be one of those late round steals, and I guess it would make sense, as he did go under the radar this last year, and I hope the best for Horn. Now getting to our actual 7th round picks, the first one we need to talk about is Ricky White. He ended up going to Marietta High School in Georgia, where he finished with 55 catches for 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns, and I believe played alongside Harrison Bailey and Arik Gilbert at one point. White would end up becoming somewhat of a big-time recruit, as he was listed as the number 98 wide receiver in his high school class, which was in 2020, and ended up going to Michigan State. While he was at Michigan State, he ended up becoming a really solid freshman for them, as he caught 10 passes for 223 yards and 1 touchdown. But after not playing at all in 2021, White would enter the portal and go over to UNLV. In his first season down in Las Vegas, he caught 51 passes for 600 yards and 4 touchdowns, but his last 2 years in a Rebels uniform made him one of the best receivers in school history, as he had 88 catches for 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns in 2023, and then this past year had 79 catches for 1,041 yards and a career-high 11 touchdowns. In his final 2 seasons, Ricky White had nearly 2,500 receiving yards, 20 touchdowns, and also over 175 receptions. He was an absolute star, but after having a terrible 40 time, and I guess him only playing in the Group of 5 level, White would end up going with the 238th overall pick in the 7th round by the Seattle Seahawks. I'm not sure how good White will be there and if he'll have much of a role, but he did put up really good numbers, so I think he definitely has potential. And in my opinion, the 40 stuff doesn't really matter all that much when you get on the field, and we'll see what happens with him, but I think he was definitely a steal for the 7th round. Our 4th guy on the list is Tez Johnson, who I got to talk about in my video yesterday, and he fell off purely because he is such a small guy. Coming out of Pinson Valley High School in Alabama, Tez Johnson was a really solid athlete, and at the age of 15 years old, he was actually taken in by Bo Nix's family because Bo Nix's dad was the high school coach. Tez ended up having a really good career while he was there, as he had over 100 catches for 1,500 yards as a junior, and ended up becoming a 3-star recruit and one of the best receivers in his high school's history. Tez, though, was not highly regarded, as he would end up going to Troy. He ended up playing in 11 games his freshman year, but would take over as a starter the following 2 seasons, as he had over 700 yards in 2021 and 800 yards in 2022. He also had 8 combined touchdowns and became the #1 target for Troy. He decided to reunite with Bo Nix when he went over to Oregon, and in his 2 years there, he was excellent. He had 86 catches for 1,182 yards and 10 touchdowns in 2023 behind Troy Franklin, and this year was once again the top target, as this time he had 83 catches for 898 yards and 10 touchdowns. Despite having nearly 160 catches, 2,000 yards, and 20 touchdowns in 2 years with a really good team, he'd end up falling to the 7th round, where he'd go at pick number 235 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is purely due to how small this guy is, as he is just super skinny. He's got to bulk up or he's going to get killed at the NFL level, but he's got insane athleticism, has good production, and I think could be a really good NFL player if they can get this guy in the weight room. Our next guy that came out of the final round of the draft was Kaden Prather. Coming out of Northwest High School in Germantown, Maryland, Kaden Prather was a really solid player, so much so that he was listed as a 4-star recruit, after having nearly 1,000 yards as a junior. Prather would make somewhat of a shocking decision, as he would decide to go to West Virginia, and during his time in college, he ended up being solid for them. As a freshman, he had 175 yards, and then would sort of break out in 2022, having over 52 catches for 501 yards and 3 touchdowns, and it looked like the sky was going to be the limit for him in 2023, but he would decide to leave West Virginia in favor of Maryland. While he's with the Terrapins, he ended up having a couple of different quarterbacks, had 42 catches for 666 yards and 5 touchdowns during his 3rd year. After becoming the second option to Ty Felton, he still had 56 catches for 624 yards and 4 touchdowns, which made him a trendy day 3 pick with a lot of upside. That's exactly what would happen, as the Bills actually took a receiver and grabbed him with pick number 240 in the 7th round, and he's now a Bill. We'll see how he fits in with Josh Allen's offense and if he can make the team, but he's definitely a solid player who is worth a late round flyer on. Our next guy is one of the more inspiring stories in this year's draft class, and that is Kannada Mumfield. Coming out of the state of Georgia, he was listed as only a 2-star recruit and the 204th best athlete in his class. He was part of the class of 2020, and despite having 13 touchdowns as a senior and playing multiple different sports, the only school that really wanted him was the Akron Zips, which are not very good. In fact, Akron's one of the worst teams in college football. But Mumfield ended up banking on himself, and in 2021, he broke out with 63 catches for 751 yards and 8 touchdowns, and because of that, he was going to have a chance to transfer up to the Power 4 level. He decided to do so at Pitt, following in the footsteps of Jordan Addison, and in each of his 3 seasons in Pittsburgh, he had over 500 yards and over 40 catches. In total, the guy had about 175 receptions for roughly 2,000 yards, but his touchdown numbers were a little bit low, as he only had 11 touchdowns in 3 years. Still, Mumfield was very productive, and combining that with his 1 year at Akron, it made him a draftable choice. That's exactly what would end up happening, as he was taken with pick number 242 in the 7th round to the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are always looking for new weapons, and Mumfield was a great player to get late, who could develop into something more, but for now, we'll just have to wait and see with him. Our second to last guy is Dominic Loveit, as he came out of the same area as Luther Burden III, both of which were from East St. Louis. Dom Loveit ended up really becoming a big name while he was in high school, as he had over 45 catches for 1,000 yards and 24 touchdowns during his sophomore year, and would continue to get better and better. After having nearly 1,600 yards his junior year, he would decide to commit to Arizona State, but due to everything going on in the world, he decided to stick closer to home and flip to Mizzou. This was a huge get for the Missouri Tigers, and Loveit had a really good couple of years for them. As a freshman, he had 100 yards, but in 2022, he had 56 catches for 846 yards and 3 touchdowns, becoming an all-SEC player, but then he decided to bail, go to Georgia, and was one of the top receiver transfers. His time at Georgia was a mixed bag. He did have nearly 110 catches for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns in 2 years, but many thought he could have been better, and he sort of should have been the number 1 option this season, but really didn't live up to it. I'd say he was just alright, and that's why he was taken with pick number 244 in the 7th round by the Detroit Lions. The Lions already have a good receiver core, but having a guy like Dominic Loveit for depth could be good, and I think with the right coaching staff, he could be developed into an NFL starter, but again, his career has kind of plateaued in my opinion. And last but not least, the Mr. Irrelevant of wide receivers in this year's draft was Junior Bergen. He's a guy who I honestly had not heard of before researching for today's video, but he's got a really cool story. He ended up going to Billings High School in the state of Montana, and instead of leaving the state, he decided to stay home and play for the Grizzlies, where he became one of the better receivers in school history. If you don't know, Montana actually has a really good FCS program, and in his 4 years there, he was solid. His best season came in 2023, as he had 59 catches for 791 yards and 5 touchdowns. But other than that, he was just pretty productive. And based on that, and his athleticism, it was enough to take him in the 7th round with the 252nd overall pick. The San Francisco 49ers were always looking to get new weapons, and they decided to take a flyer on Junior, and we'll see how he pans out. So yeah, today I wanted to give some spotlight to the receivers taken at the end of the draft, and while some of these guys may not make the roster, I bet you 1 or 2 of them will end up becoming really good, and I bet one of these guys will at some point become a Pro Bowler. Let me know who you think that will be, which video topic I should do next, and before you go, don't forget to also leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out the videos on the end screen, including my video about where all the undrafted quarterbacks went. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.